Our next honorary is Professor David DiLaura, most recently with Acuity Brands. David unfortunately cannot join us tonight, but Paul Terracone is here to introduce him and say a few words. Please welcome Paul.
Evening, everybody. So when Randy asked me to introduce Dave at this event, I thought, first I thought, what an honor. Then I thought, what can I say that hasn't already been said about Dave DiLaura? Many of us here already know about David's long list of achievements. A fellow of the IES and IES medal recipient, co-editor of the 10th edition of the IES Lighting Handbook, and the first editor of the IES journal Lucos. Dave is the preeminent educator and historian in the industry and the author of A History of Light and Lighting, and the list goes on. So at that point I asked myself, what could I say by way of introduction that is unique to my experience with David and my role as editor of LDNA? So I came up with a few fun facts, trivia, that only I would know as editor of LDNA. To my knowledge, David is the only contributor to the magazine to have the same essay run in two different issues, 15 years apart. And it wasn't an accident. It was intentional. His article on the creation of the IES in 1906 appeared in both the IES Centennial issue in 2006 and the LDNA 50th anniversary issue just last July in 2021. Even more impressive, in LDNA's list of lighting pioneers published in the IES Centennial year of 2006, David was the only pioneer on that list still active in the industry at that time. Truly a living legend. The last thing is those who know David will probably agree, one of the most impressive things about him, as a technical person, he is an unbelievable communicator. Probably the best communicator I've met in this industry. And when I would get an email or a phone call from David about something in LDNA, sometimes I would cringe a little bit, maybe get a cup of coffee, wonder, is he going to use a term like verbal slush about an article, which he did from time to time? Nothing that I wrote, but he used that term. But the last anecdote I'd like to share about David and his role as a communicator. In 2006, at the IES annual conference, that was the centennial year, David gave the keynote address that year. So my wife was with me, who would listen to my IES work stories every night and sort of roll her eyes, and they didn't really land too well with my wife. But she was with me, and David gave his talk on how the IES was formed and all these pioneers from the past. So we leave the event, and my wife was like, wow, who is that guy? Why can't you be that interesting? You really, now I understand this lighting thing. So all kidding aside, that's what makes, I think that's the ultimate currency in this industry, is making what you do, relevant to the layperson. So David, his technical achievements are unparalleled, but his communication is just as impressive. So he can't be here. He sent along some remarks, which Randy will not read. I will read these. It's a 2 for 1.
Yes.
David writes, recognition by one's peers is a particularly welcome kind, and so I am more than grateful for being honored with this Lifetime Achievement Award. Teaching and mathematics applied to lighting calculations have been the double focus of my career. Of the two, it is teaching that has been the most important, the most satisfying, the most gratifying. But I learned very early in my teaching career that technical subjects cannot be taught. They must be learned. And so I was for many years a learning enabler. At the heart of that process was the trust that students put in me and in the course of study in which they strove. trusting that in the end, the struggle and upward climb would reveal to them the stamina and talent that I knew they possessed. And so my achievement is actually theirs. But I cannot entirely put aside my work in lighting calculations. I have enjoyed it immensely, always finding it rewarding to generate tools to help those who bring light to the world, to help them be a little more certain of the outcome. It has been a privilege to participate in lighting projects, even if remotely and at second hand, as it were. As I push into my 77th year, it is this activity that still keeps me tethered to the lighting industry. An industry that has surrounded both my teaching and my mathematics. An industry I have always found welcoming, supportive, keen to innovate, willing and able to serve society and the world, and as this award demonstrates, generous with its praise. And so, for the honor you do me today, I thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I apologize for looking at my phone, but I wanted to share one thing that dawned on me as Paul was reading this, and I think he touched it in David's remarks. As most of you know, David was a professor at the University of Colorado for quite some time. Go Buffs! Yeah! As most of you know, I also am a Buff and a fond person of David. I went on a recruiting visit, if you can call it that, in 2000, whatever. Long story short, I sat at David's office for 2.5 hours talking to him about what I love to do while a line of students lined up for office hours. And he got up and left with me and said, I'll be back tomorrow. Like, he gave all his time to not even a student because he was so fond of, I think, teaching. And I want to find this quote exactly, but I asked David to come interview, and oh man, it's just really, really cool. Oh, here it is. I said, David, I'd like to interview you for a short biography to capture your story because you mean so much to this industry. And he said, Sam, what do you want? Something written, a video, an interview? Again, to be frank, I'm not, really keen on that, but I do think that if I have a legacy, it's a living legacy. All those students who discovered and eventually went into lighting in the 22 years that I headed up and taught the CU lighting program. And he attached an HTML file with every student's name to the email.
Wow.
I mean, he could have converted that email maybe into a spreadsheet. Like, he could have engraved it on a plaque, but no, he's like, I started it this way and I'm going to finish it this way. And I think that's something we should all think about every day in our lives. Like, start what you finished and do it with the same integrity that you did the day you showed up. Please join me in giving David one more huge congratulations.